We're live.
Good morning, everybody. We are live at a social surge with Fly and Mo. Once again, just having a dance party.
The owl is dancing. Does the owl have a name yet?
You know what? The owl does not have a name yet.
I liked it when you did your ChatGPT action figure, which those are so fun. But what I thought was funny was that it put a little brand sticker, like it made up a little brand for you, and it just said Vo.
I saw that.
I that struck me, and so I was like, maybe this little bloody, maybe her name is Vo. We got Mo and Vo.
Ooh,
I'm just
I
saying,
like
I don't
that.
know.
Yes.
I'm just making things up. What's up, everybody?
I love that. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about with the action figures, so if you haven't seen them on social, right?
Okay.
They've been around. They've been floating around for like the past week or so. And I hadn't seen a really good prompt for one. And a couple of the prompts that I tried, I was like, oh, this is lame. I'm not going to put this up. But then my friend Beth Bowman, or is it Bauman? Sorry, Beth. I met her when she was not married, and it was Washaba. So
that's kind of a sick name.
Yeah, right. We work together. She does PR. She works for IMGE, I believe. And we've always gotten along really great. Well, she had a prompt yesterday on LinkedIn that she used, and she shared it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I went ahead and tried her prompt, and it turned out really, really well. Go to my LinkedIn. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. If you're like, what is this crazy woman saying now?
And it even has a little like DJI.
Yes. It was pretty badass. I have to say, I was pretty thrilled with how well it turned out. Let me see if I can log in real quick. Not that this is what we're supposed to be talking about today, but welcome.
It's topical. It's new. It's now. It's hip. Oh my God. What's wrong with me?
It's new. It's now. I broke my hip.
That's more like it. Yeah. That was more like my weekend for sure.
So the prompt is create a stylized collectible action figure of, and then you put whoever it is, and then you put. So basically, you could go to my LinkedIn, take the prompt, take out all of my names and all of my identifying things, and then put your own identifying things in there, and it'll create it. But what I loved about it is the fact that like a legit shared. Can I do a share screen on here? I have never even tried.
Yeah, on the bottom you should be able to present.
Oh, do I really want to present though?
Go. If you want to look at Mo's cool action figure, or you want to create one for your own, I highly recommend just drop down into Mo's LinkedIn page.
Yeah, because I can't do that right now because it's my computer's like danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Yeah. Also, if I had to present right now, just like the sheer number of tabs would be.
Oh yeah.
Nobody wants to see that.
It's not pretty. So we actually do have a purpose for being here today. So James Milner, who's a buddy of ours, and he usually catches us on Instagram, thank you for joining us, ZGA agency and Doctor from something. Sorry, I can't read that. You're joining us on Instagram. Appreciate you guys being here. Mr. Regalato, you are with us, joining us on YouTube. What the heck? Okay. So James Milner actually called me last week, and he has questions for us. He's like, do you guys answer questions? I'm like, abso-freaking-lutely, we answer questions. And this was a great question. He wants to know, what KPIs should he be paying attention to? How do you know it's good content based on the KPIs? And how to deal with hating the platform that you're on that gets the best engagement?
Yeah, we need to unpack that one. But let's start with the data.
Okay.
Let's start with the data. So you, being the queen that you are, we don't need the receipts. They are evident. If you had to choose 3 KPIs to know whether or not your content is working, whether it's getting the results that you want, that it's driving, people further down your pipeline into, being your client, or whatever your goals are, right? Like when you're looking at organic content, what are the KPIs that people should be paying attention to?
Impression, reach, and views. Now that's only for a few platforms. So if we're talking about X, I would actually say that one of the KPIs needs to be profile views.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
If you've got people going to your profile on X and they're actually going to see who you are, that is a good metric that your content is hitting the right people, unless it's completely wrong and people are trying to figure out who you are just so that they can like troll you. So always, always got to make sure that you're paying attention, right? But impression, reach, and views. So impressions are the number of times that your content shows up on somebody's screen, right? Whether it's mobile or it's desktop. And then reach is the number of people that you've actually reached. When we're talking about organic social, I think it's important for you guys to understand what the percentage of organic reach happens on each of the platforms. And I have to tell you, it's generally less than 4%. So like, I think X has probably the lowest at like between 1.2 and 1.7%.
Sure.
Instagram traditionally has had the best reach, between like, I think it's like 3.5 and 3.8%. The numbers obviously have changed throughout the years, but Instagram generally has better. LinkedIn is also less than 2.5%. It's pretty low. So when can
you break down, sorry, I'm interrupting you. Can you break down specifically what those numbers are indicating? Like, what is it a percentage of? Like, let's just start there.
Okay. So the way that I explain to my clients is, imagine you have 1,000 connections or followers, right? And if your posts are reaching, and you can figure this out, particularly on LinkedIn, you can click on a post, and if they have reached 100 people, that is obviously 10% of your reach, right? 1,000, 100, boom, easy numbers. On average, it's going to be less than 4%. So if you have 100 connections and only, 40 people have seen that, well, guess what? You're average. Welcome to the club. There's also another stat that's out there with regard to LinkedIn when we're talking about things. Good morning, Dwayne. And that has to do with 70. This was a stat that was put out early last year by LinkedIn. 70% of all posts on LinkedIn do not get any type of engagement.
Crazy.
70%. So if you're feeling like your content isn't reaching, welcome to the club. And I do have to say, over the last few weeks, the LinkedIn, not few weeks, it's been a couple months.
It's been months now. It was a whole quarter.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah, absolutely. The LinkedIn algorithm has been super, super duper dumb. Content that you had before that traditionally did very well, not doing well. Video views down. The recommended video views that they've said, it's not doing anything. And so it's just I can understand people's frustration. It is very frustrating to have what you think is a winning combination when it comes to content. And then all of a sudden it's just hitting and missing, right? So it's like swing, swing, swing. And you're just not getting a hit with it. All I can tell you is that you just need to consistently post.
Yeah.
Now, on to something a little bit separate, then we'll get back to the KPIs. But Sprout Social just dropped their report on the best times, and I'll do a post on this later this week, right, but on their best times to post, right? And as always, it's always like the certain time, but they never tell you what time zone that's supposed to be in. So it's always kind of like one of those things like, okay, you're telling me that the best times to post on Instagram are between, Tuesday and Thursday between 2 and 4 p.m. What time zone? When?
I have to say, I've always interpreted that as being in the time zone in which the people that you would like to be reaching are active. Like, look, there is a reason that you are awake and doing this at 5:42 a.m. is because a lot of the clients that you serve and the other people that you're trying to reach and your community are over there. I'm pointing there because that's New York. Like, that's going that way.
Yep.
Right? And so that's real, right? I mean, yeah, I've seen people, somebody, I can't remember who, somebody just recently moved from East Coast to West Coast, and they're like, oh, this time difference real though. So I don't know. That's how I've always interpreted that.
That's a great way to interpret that. I love that because yeah, if those are the people that you're trying to reach, that's the time that you need to be posting. That's a great point. I love that. Cha-ching. But I mean, it's kind of frustrating when you're trying to get all this information and you're trying to do the best that you can with the information that you have. And it's just like this, what does it mean? What does it mean? So let's go back to KPIs.
Yeah.
So video views back in the day, hey, pour one out. Back in the day on Facebook, the metric of like you actually had 3-second video views.
Yeah.
Why was that important? That was important because if somebody had seen your video for 3 seconds, you could then retarget and remarket to them, which was amazing. I don't know what that is now. I don't think it's 3 seconds. I think it has to be longer than that. But if somebody had seen your video for 3 seconds, then you could actually advertise to them, which was amazing, right? Not necessarily if it was your target, if it wasn't your target market,
right?
Because then you could be wasting your ad dollars in front of a variety of people that didn't want to see your product at all,
right?
But video views are also important, especially when we're talking about Instagram. So Instagram has different metrics that they're using. Video views, they're not counting, which was I found interesting. They're not counting comments anymore. Allegedly, and by comments I mean the amount of people that comment. What they're counting now is time spent on post. So if you think about it, if you are leaving a valuable piece of, like if you're leaving a valuable comment on an Instagram post, that's what they're talking about. It's how long your screen stopped and you were there viewing that content.
Yep.
And then scrolling on, right? So it just depends. So but the KPIs that I always look for: impressions, so the number of times that your content shows up on the screen, reach, and then views. I am not a big fan of followers or connections.
It's just changed. It used to be a significant indicator of how successful or how well your content was performing, right?
Right.
And it used to be also because the algorithm in which the platforms were delivering content to people were much more based on who you were following, as opposed to trying to, like, the For You page, right? Like trying to push content similar to you, just like more, right? Now, it is interesting because I have seen some apps like trying to move back to that. Or to, have dedicated feeds, like on X, for example, you have 2 different feeds. And if you don't have any other community groups, right, you have a For You and then you have a following, right? And so you can kind of filter that out. Facebook has also been talking about, or I've seen some things about like, the desire to move back to when it was really truly about the people that you were connected with, right? So, but we are not only seeing content from the people that we follow. And in fact, many times, especially on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's very interesting because you can follow people without connecting to them. There's a lot, and the way that LinkedIn specifically pushes content, of other like 2nd and 3rd degree connections or all that kind of stuff. Like you can get lost in this kind of stuff, right? But it is way more important to look at the actual interaction than the follower count, because the algorithms don't favor that anymore.
I would rather have, 1,000 raving fans who are continuously interacting with my content and sharing it than having 1 million fans and only 10
yes
are interacting, right?
And for me, that's also the same when I look at engagement rate. How many people engaged with the content compared to how many people saw it, right? And, because you can have not a whole lot of people see a post, like very often I will like put out a quick hitter and like less than 1,000 people have seen that, come up in their feed for a litany of reasons. But I am usually always pleased with my engagement rate. I would rather have 1,000 people see my post and have 30 people like it than 10,000 people see my post and 30 people like it. Now, you're probably not going to see those kinds of numbers anyway. If people aren't engaging, it's going to have less reach. But it is because of virality and because of the emphasis on vanity metrics, people dismiss when they have posts that have a high engagement but low reach, because they think that not enough people are seeing it. And I'm just like, this is a great thing. This means that the people who the people who are supposed to be seeing your content are seeing it, because that engagement is super high, right? And so I actually really love high engagement, lower reach, because it shows me that I have a dedicated group of people that my content is speaking to, and that is where you start building those relationships. And so when we just look at numbers, sometimes it's like, what is the story that they are actually telling? Because also, like, probably the posts that are going, have a lot of visibility, a lot of reach, even high engagement, they may not be the expert positioning, the niche, educational content that is actually the content that is going to be moving the needle, right? And so when I'm looking at the entire, sort of like array of KPIs in terms of this, I'm very, very, it is one of the hills I will die on. I have foothills. I have a little spread of foothills I will just absolutely lay myself out on, right? It's like, it is 100% okay to have less visibility if you have a high engagement rate, because it means that your content is really hitting with those people. Now, it is 100% awesome if you have content that has that higher visibility, because that is the top of the funnel content that is going to bring people in closer to your pipeline. So when I'm looking at brand awareness, I'm looking at visibility, I'm looking at reach, I'm looking for a much broader kind of engagement. And the lower I get, or the farther I get down the funnel, I'm really looking for that high engagement rate. And I 100%, like, across the board, you are very likely to have less visibility with that very targeted content, because you're not trying to target everybody. You're trying to target your ideal client. You're trying to target your prospects. You're trying to target the people and speak to the people that you really want to help, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you're trying to help everybody, right?
You're helping no one.
Yeah.
And so what I hope what you guys get from that nugget that she just dropped is brand awareness is at the top of the funnel. And then as you get further down through the funnel, it is more targeted content to your ideal client. If you're trying to appease everybody all the time, you're not going to get anywhere, because they're just going to come. They're going to be like, oh, well, they're fluff. Like, they produce fluff.
Yep. And people love fluff.
They do.
That's why the internet's full of cat videos, right?
And memes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And those are, again, great way to like show your personality, great way to build visibility and familiarity, right? For your personal brand.
Right. Well, just like the post that I did yesterday with the character, right? The actual picture has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I wanted to do it. Now, granted, thanks, Dwayne. Appreciate that. But that's the thing. I mean, social media doesn't have to always be your niche market all the time, right? But if you are trying to attract a certain clientele and you are only getting a few engagements with that content, but that's your target market, holy Hannah, I was going to say something else. That's fantastic. Good on you. Now, if you do like a rather generalized post about the market and you get a lot of you get a lot of interaction. That's great too. But how many of those people are actually going to actively engage with you in business? And that's what you have to think about. So in the grand scheme of things, we want content that's going to be creating that brand awareness. And then as we bring people down through the funnel, which is exactly what you need, because you want those clients, it needs to be more niche. It needs to be more to what they're looking for, into what's the information that they're going to want. So the other thing that
Wait,
Mr. James Milner asked us.
I have one more thing to say.
Oh, sorry.
And we may actually be better served if we bump out the second question into Thursday. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah,
just so we can, because I want to drop something here that I think is really important. I was getting really fired up about this yesterday. Okay. Because everything that we have been talking about right now is results-based KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at those benchmarks of like that percentage of engagement, right? Or that percentage of people who are seeing your content, whatever the numbers are telling you, like those are results. Those are the results of your effort. So my big thing, and another hill I will die on, is that first of all, if you want results, second of all, if you're measuring results, you're looking at these KPIs to tell you how it's working. If you have results-based KPIs, you need effort-based KPIs that guarantee them. And what I mean about this, and I will hammer on this until the cows come home, is that you need a consistent plan of attack for how you are going to achieve those results. It is no different than like keeping your pipeline full, right? You cannot like start one deal down the pipeline and get that to the close and then I've done no other work. I haven't kept things flowing through, right? And so like if you are wanting to get to the point where someone is converting because of all of those results that you achieved with your content, you need a system in which you can repeatedly make that happen, which all for me comes back down to effort-based KPIs. And what I mean by that is, when are you posting? How often are you posting? And honestly, like you could just break it down to that. And you can start to break it down a little more and add more steps to it. But like, look, at the end of the day, again, brokers, if you don't make your calls, you are not going to get to a closing. And so if you don't have a system in which you are, dedicating time to making those calls, knowing who to call, all the stuff that goes into that, like you're not going to get to the end, right? And so if you are saying to yourself, I'm going to start trying to get results with my content, measuring at the back end when you've actually posted stuff like is meaningless to me if you don't have a system in which you're constantly measuring your effort, right? I really feel strongly that you need both of those two pieces, because you will have so much more to look at if you're consistently measuring how much you're doing and how much that's achieving. Like, well, what did you do and what did it yield? Right. And then, you're also going to have a larger data set, right? Like you may find out that you don't need to post every single day of the week. And I think that would give people a lot of relief, right? But you may find you are just going to have so much more information about not only like what you're doing, but when you're doing it and why it's working. So that's my whole big thing, is that like people are so focused on the outcome and they're not focused on the effort, and there is no outcome without the effort. And so if you are saying you want this to happen, how are you measuring the effort that you know is going to get you there? That's it. That's all.
No, I agree with you 100%. Dwayne says I was up, so I posted at 2:30 this morning with a plan to repost it later today. Okay. So that's an interesting, so I can see this how this is playing out. So it's reposting it because that audience at 2:30 in the morning probably didn't see it. Now, what's interesting though is 2:30 your time is what? 11:30 on the Pacific Coast. Mm-hmm. And so there's awful lot of people on social media at 11:30. Like if you actually look at the where people are landing, like I kid you not, it's like 1 to 4 a.m. regardless of what time zone you're in. There's a butt ton of people on social media at that time. It is very wild. Like it's very strange. Like what are you people doing? Like I know I don't sleep a lot, but like I don't have my phone in my room. Like there's no electronics in my room.
Really?
No, we don't do TV. There's no phones. There's none of that stuff. Like,
you know, you told me that actually before, and I did it for a minute and then I'd stop.
Well, and now I feel bad because like one of my kids called me. They don't live at home, and they called me at like, I don't know, it was like 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, you do realize like my phone is not in my room, and we don't have a landline, so it's not like it's kind of probably not a great thing. But my other 2 kids always have their phones on them too, so it's just like whatever. If you need to get a hold of us, get a hold of them, and they'll come and get us. They'll knock on the door. But my poor kids, we were abandoned. They're 25 and 23. Don't feel so bad. Okay, so. No. So the before I went off on that tangent, yes, you can repost your content. The only thing I worry about with reposting content is the fact that sometimes the algorithm does not like that, which is stupid. Because why would you have a repost option? Why would you have a share option if it doesn't like that ability? So I would test. Hey, you had me at butt ton. I have this whole thing about, never mind. We'll talk about that later. I would love for you to test reposting your content versus actually just taking it and not rewriting it, but like copying and pasting and putting it as a new post versus reposting. I would love to see what happens with those numbers and how the algorithm treats that content. As does it do better or does it do worse than a repost? So it's, especially with LinkedIn frustrates me when it comes to repost and shares because they give you that option. Last year, they told you they didn't want you to do that. They didn't want you to repost content because it allegedly killed the forward momentum of any post. But then it was like, then why have that option? So then it was like, okay, you have 3 dots at the top, do a link share, and then do it that way to repost. That did well for a while, and then that kind of got the kibosh too. So I would love for you to test that, Dwayne, and see how well it does. So
yeah. The other recommendations I would make on that front, or the things I would be thinking about, is like you can schedule a post. If you're just like jamming at 2:30 and like my late night time, I will often be like, oh, I do a lot of my writing like late at night, right? And then like I will just save it. Like I will just save it in a little file and then like post it when I know I have time to polish it or like whatever, right? But like I will really try to stay within a window of like people are awake. So, and a part of that reason is, and this is interesting, I do not know how reposting affects this, but on LinkedIn, really important is because the way that visibility gets pushed, the way that reach gets pushed is by, it's really important to engage with people who are commenting on the post, right? If people are commenting and you're not commenting back, LinkedIn is going to be like, they don't care. So they're not going to keep pushing it to people necessarily. So one of the recommendations that I've had work really well for me is if you post something, the hour after you post is critical peak time to make sure that you are engaging with any comments on it, right? And then after that, like you can come back to it, or like, you know, there's a post I've let go for like a week because it had a lot of comments on it and I got overwhelmed and I couldn't like keep up with it. So I engaged as much as I could in the time that I knew it was kind of peak. And then after that, I put it aside and then I came back to it, right? But I do not know what that looks like if you've reposted something, right? Or if you've done a quote post. So for me, my recommendation is if you're just totally jamming at 2:30 in the morning, you got something to say, unless it's really important that it was posted at 2:30 in the morning. Like sometimes I had a post recently where I was talking about the end of the workday and I posted it at the end of the workday, and like different conversations happen at different times, right?
Right.
But if I was jamming at 2:30, I would probably save it, wait, post it closer between like 7:30, 8:30 when I know that people are kind of like not wanting to start their day. So they're going on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. You also have to look at the psychology of what people are doing, right? Some people like, and if we look at what time we post for Bob Knackle, it's at 7:30 in the morning, East Coast time, right? Why is that? Because I know that people are commuting at that time and they are going to be scrolling at that time, right? And so then that content with that golden hour, and that also includes responding to DMs. I'm very critical about responding to DMs. I want people to respond to their DMs, especially within that hour after posting. We can talk more about the golden hour. You're being silly.
I gotta go like find this post now, Dwayne.
Yeah, Dwayne, we're gonna go find it and we're gonna go engage with it. All right, so we're gonna finish James's question on, because he had an additional part of this question. It has to do with platforms and how you feel about them and how do you engage when you are not enamored with the platform that you are on. So James will answer that question for you on Thursday. And again, we'll be back here, same bat time, same bat channel. Hope you have a great day.
Tuesday, go Crush. Yay. Wow, did I just say words? Go Crush.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.